Welcome to all. So in this particular video we will see the concept of CPU scheduling. Okay, so CPU scheduling is the basis of multi-programmed operating system. By switching the CPU among the process, the operating system can make the computer more productive. So in the present era or current scenarios, we are seeing multi-programmed operating system, isn't it? So it can the operating system has the capacity to do multi-programming. The idea of multi-programming is relatively simple. A process is executed until it must wait typically for the completion of some IO request. Okay, in simple computer system, the CPU would then sit idle. In all this waiting time is wasted. With the multi-programming, we try to use this time productively. Several processes are kept in a memory at one time. When one process has to wait, the operating system takes the CPU away from that process and gives the CPU to another process. So this pattern continues. Ultimately, see, when in the normal system, what was the concept? When there is no concept of multi-programming, so if if a particular process is waiting for IO, it has to be kept idle. Your CPU will not be doing anything because another process will be working on that IO. But in the multi-programming scenarios, what it will do some other job. It won't kept idle. The process will not be kept idle. So this will boost the productivity actually. So and you will see the more faster processing. Okay, so the main concept is you are not keeping the this one process idle. You will be giving some work to, or you will be assigning some work to those process. So this is the actual example for this is the idea of CPU scheduling. Okay, scheduling is a fundamental operating system function. Almost all computer resources are scheduled before use. The CPU is, of course, one of the primary computer resource. That CPU, according to CPU, they are saying, thus its scheduling is central to operating system design. Definitely. So CPU is the heart of everything, isn't it? So without CPU we cannot imagine the computer system. So to schedule it, it is a primary part of operating system design. So whenever the developers are trying to design or they are developing operating system, so they will concentrate more on scheduling also, so that the productivity can be enhanced. That is the meaning. So there is a concept of CPU IO burst cycle. Okay, input output burst cycle. We will see what is it. The success of CPU scheduling depends on the following observed property of the process. The process execution consists of a cycle of CPU execution and IO wait. Why it is a cycle of CPU execution and IO wait? Because some process may be waiting for IO, some process may be executing, isn't it? At that time, the process which are waiting, it has to be in a separate queue, and the process which are under execution, they will be obviously getting executed, so you don't have any issues. So you have the concept of states, isn't it? Process states. So you can imagine, you can recall all the concepts of process states. Here also, that is the reason why they said that it will be in a cycle. Okay, the process execution begins with the CPU burst, that is followed by IO burst, then another CPU burst, then another IO burst, and so on. Ultimately, the meaning is, so whenever you are in execution, it is in a separate queue. When you are waiting, it is in a separate category. It's a kind of queue, separate. Say for example, if I want to give the best example, in post office or bank system, there will be separate queue for withdrawal and separate queue for deposit, isn't it? They will usually make separate queues for this, and separate people will be giving the assistance to them. But in case of computer science or this one operating system, you don't have the concept like that. So there will be separate queue definitely, but CPU will be serving the rest of the processors. Fine. So that's why they said CPU burst and IO burst. Eventually, the last CPU burst will end with the system request to terminate the execution rather than the another IO burst. So you can see the figure. I will show you the figure. Don't worry. In the next slide, there will be a figure that will give the better idea of IO burst and CPU burst. The duration of this CPU burst have been extensively measured, because burst time has to be measured. Otherwise, how to get to know that how much time a process has taken and how efficiently that process has executed. All these things has to be measured for the performance purpose. Okay, so this is the example for CPU and IO burst. So you can see load, store, add, store, read from file. This is the CPU burst part. Next, waiting for IO, it is the IO burst part. Now store, increment, index, write to the file, again CPU burst, because it is under execution, isn't it? Now waiting for IO, again IO burst. Next, again loading, storing or adding the store and read from the file, again CPU burst. And if something is waiting for IO, again IO burst. Okay, it is depending on the category, whether it is under execution or whether it is under waiting. Okay, so this is the rough idea of sequence of CPU and IO burst. Fine. So in the next concept, CPU scheduler. So when the CPU becomes idle, the operating system must select one of the process in the ready queue to be executed. That is the reason why I said you have to remember the process states. So there is a concept of ready queue also, isn't it? Ready state and waiting state, isn't it? Execution state, start state, start or begin state, isn't it? So that also you have to recall for the understanding of CPU scheduling. Fine. Now when the CPU becomes idle, definitely OS has to give the process which is waiting in a ready queue. Fine. The selection of this process is carried out by the short-term scheduler. The scheduler selects from among the process in memory that are ready to execute and allocates the CPU to one of them. So ultimately, instead of keeping them to wait, it is better if the CPU is idle, directly take one process from the ready queue and feed it to the CPU so that it can get executed. That is the meaning. Okay, the ready queue is not necessarily a first in first out queue, because depending on the priority it can take, and based on the decision of operating system, it can fetch the process and it can feed that to the CPU. As we shall see when we consider the various scheduling algorithm, a ready queue may be implemented as a FIFO queue or first in first out queue, a priority queue, a tree, or a simply an unordered linked list. So these are the possible way. Priority also possible, tree also possible, or unordered linked list also possible, depending on the OS algorithm, or sorry, not OS, scheduling algorithm. So based on the scheduling algorithm, this operating system behave in that way. Fine. So there is another concept of preemptive scheduling. Okay, CPU scheduling decisions may take place under the following circumstances. Okay, the first circumstance is when a process switches from the running state to the waiting state. When you are going to do that, running state to waiting state, when you are you want some resources, isn't it? Maybe IO or any other resources. For example, IO request or invocation of wait for the termination of another child process. So there can be several reasons why the ongoing execution process may go to the waiting queue or waiting state. That is the one circumstance. The second circumstance is when a process switches from the running state to the ready state. For example, when the interrupt occurs, that means it will be under execution, but it goes to the ready state if some message or some interrupt occurs. It may be error or technical error, it may be network error, or it may be high priority requests, depending on the situation. Okay, but that is the second circumstance. The third circumstance is when a process switches from waiting state to the ready state. It is not running state, waiting state. It will be in a waiting queue, and once the wait is over, once the resources is given to that particular process, the process directly go to the ready state. Now from ready state, it will go to execution state. completion. That is the reason why they said, for example, completion of IO, input output operation is, if it is completed, then it will go to from waiting state to ready state. It will go, the process will go there, process will switch. Okay, the last but not the least, the circumstances when a process terminates. When everything is fine, everything has executed, then it will obviously terminate. So this is the fourth circumstance of preemptive scheduling. Now we will see what is actually, when we solve the particular problem, you are going to get the concept of preemptive scheduling, but you have to understand these four circumstances for scheduling algorithm. The next thing is, when scheduling takes place only under some circumstances 1 and 4, we say the scheduling scheme is non-preemptive or no preemptive. Otherwise, the scheduling scheme is preemptive. So what is that circumstance 1 and 4? So it is nothing but when a process switches from running state to the waiting state, and when process terminates. That time it is a non-preemptive one. Otherwise, it is a preemptive scheme. Under no preemptive scheduling, once the CPU has been allocated to a particular process, the process keeps the CPU until it releases the CPU, either by terminating or by switching to the waiting state. Remember this, in non-preemptive thing, until and unless the process work is done, it won't leave the CPU. It won't release the CPU for the other process to run. Remember this. Okay, the next thing is, this scheduling method is used by the Microsoft Windows 3.1 and the Apple Macintosh or Mac OS. Fine. So this is the scheduling method used by them. Okay, it is the only method that can be used on certain hardware platform, because it does not require the special hardware. For example, timer needed for the preemptive scheduling. So remember this, for preemptive scheduling, so you don't need any certain hardware platforms, because in some cases we have some requirements, isn't it? Say for example, if I talk about the real-time examples, if you want to install MATLAB, or if you want to install Photoshop, or if you want to install any high-end games, you have to first see the system requirements. If you are meeting your system requirements or hardware requirements, then only those applications can run in a smoother way. Okay, so that's why we say that but in the case of preemptive scheduling concept, it is not actually hardware platforms. It does not require any special hardware actually. Fine, that is the meaning. The next, preemption is also an effect on the design of the operating system kernel. During the processing of a system call, the kernel may be busy with the activity on behalf of a process. Such activities may involve changing important kernel data. So preemption also actually affect the design, because while designing the operating system, they have to concentrate on preemption also, because it may change the core code. Kernel code is nothing but core of the operating system. It should not change the core, isn't it? So while designing, they have to concentrate on preemption. Some operating system, including most version of Unix, deal with this problem by waiting either for a system call to complete or an IO block to take place before doing the context switch. So this is one of the scenario where it may be waiting for a system call to complete. Maybe for some system call is nothing but some execution of a system programs, or else it may be waiting for IO block. It input output weightage. It may be waiting for that. Okay, so before the switching of the context or context switching, so it will be in that particular state. Okay, this scheme ensures that kernel structure is simple, since the kernel will not preempt a process while the kernel data structure are in a inconsistent state. So definitely, if the kernel structure is in inconsistent state, definitely it will not go for preemptive one. Okay, in case of non-preemptive, what you have to do, once the CPU is given to a particular process, the process will never release the CPU until and unless its work is done. Fine, but in case of preemptive, based on it is preemptive is nothing but adjustable. If more priority for call comes into picture, definitely it will allow. Okay, it is a preemptive one is a liberal concept. Fine. Now there is a concept of dispatcher. Another component involved in the CPU scheduling function is the dispatcher. The dispatcher is the module that gives the control of the CPU to the process selected by the short-time scheduler. The function involves, there are some functions for dispatchers. First one is context switch. Second one is switching to user mode. The third one is jumping to the proper location of the user program to restart the program. So obviously, in case of crash, in case of some scenarios where if the control has to jump to the particular place where you have to restart the program, definitely you require dispatcher. For context switching, you need a dispatcher. See, I already explained the context switching in the previous videos, but you can recall all those concepts. Now, dispatcher is required to switch to user mode. If the concept is to switch to user mode, definitely you need dispatcher. Fine. And dispatcher is actually, it's a kind of component for CPU scheduling. The dispatcher should be as fast as possible, given that it is invoked during the every process switch. So based on if the process is switching, definitely dispatcher is required, and it has to be very fast so that you cannot see the lag. You should not see the lag actually. The time it takes for the dispatcher to stop one process and start another running is known as dispatch latency. So that is the small gap. Actually, dispatcher will be very fast, but there may be, if you are going for high-end processes or larger processes or a big file, if you are going to deal with it, definitely it may take some milliseconds or seconds. That duration is called dispatcher latency. Latency means you are waiting for something, or it is a wasting of time, or it is a delay. I can say delay. Kind of word I can say. It is a delay. Okay, that is a waiting delay. Fine, that is called dispatch latency. Now there is a concept, there are some criteria for scheduling. Though different CPU scheduling algorithms have different properties and may favor one class of process over another. Okay, in choosing which algorithm to use a particular situation, we must consider some properties in algorithms. So there are scheduling algorithms. Some of the scheduling algorithms, we will solve some problems for scheduling algorithm also, because they are important. Once you start solving the problem, you are going to get the rough idea. Don't worry. Fine. Now there are some criterias. CPU utilization. First criteria, CPU utilization may range from 0 to 100%. In real system, it should be range from 40% to 90%. Okay, so that is the average range, I can say, from 40% to 90%. So 90%, it is a heavily used system. Fine. If the usage of the system is very high, then definitely the CPU utilization will be more. Fine. Next one is throughput. If the CPU is busy executing process, then work is being done. One measure of work is the number of process completed per time unit, called throughput. So based on its kind of output, we can say it's a kind of output. Throughput means, isn't it? Because it is a time taken, or within a particular time, or within a particular span of time, how much the process has run, or has executed, or has completed. That is nothing but a throughput. Fine. The next thing is turnaround time. From the point of view of a particular process, the important criterion is how long it takes to execute a process, isn't it? So each and every process will think that how much time it requires to execute, or it requires to complete the entire process. Fine. The interval from the time of the submission of a process to the time of completion is turnaround time. So when it will submit and when it will complete, the duration, the gap is called turnaround time. The turnaround time is the sum of the periods spent waiting to get into the memory, waiting in the ready queue, executing on the CPU, and doing I/O. So this is by adding all this waiting thing or latency, you are going to get the turnaround time. Total time, how much it taken to execute the process. That is called turnaround time. Waiting time. The CPU scheduling algorithm does not affect the amount of time during which a process executes or does I/O. Fine. So it will actually not affect that. Fine. It affects only the amount of time that a process spends waiting in a ready queue. That is a waiting time. It won't consider rest of the latency or delay. It will just mainly concentrate or affect on the process which is spending the time in a ready queue. Waiting time is the sum of periods spent waiting in the ready queue. So if the process is waiting for the execution in a ready queue, the time which is spent at that time is called as waiting time. Next is response time. In an interactive system, turnaround time may not be the best criterion, because turnaround time means it will consider all the delay for waiting the queue or execution or IO. Everything is called the time taken for everything is called turnaround time. But it may not be the best one, because when it consider everything, then obviously you may get your execution slower, or you may see the lag in the system, isn't it? That's why often a process can produce some output fairly early and can continue computing new results while previous results are being output to the user. So that means it is a continuous process. It won't wait for something else. So once it will calculate and it will give to the user. While giving, it will take up next task and it will start executing. That is the meaning. Fine. Thus, another measure is the time from the submission of a request until the first response is produced. This measure is called response time. So when the request has put to the system, from then first response of that system is received, that is called response time. The best example I can give, real-time example I can give is, say for example, you are writing some mail to a particular customer care. When they are going to give the first response to you, that is called response time. And after that, there may be so many threads. There may be so many replies from them as well as from you. That is a separate part of story. But the first response given by your customer care through mail is called response time. How fast they are responding, isn't it? Say for example, your recharge is not done, but the amount has deducted from your bank. Definitely you will wait for some time and you will put a message to the bank customer care, isn't it? So at that time, after sending your mail, how much time you are waiting for the first response from the bank side, that is called response time. That is a real-time example I have given. But in case of process, the same concept, but the process will be executing with respect to CPU, with the help of CPU. But until and unless it will be in a ready queue, it will be in a waiting state, isn't it? It will be waiting for the execution. Fine. These are some of the criterions you have to follow. Now we can think of a scheduling algorithm. CPU scheduling deals with the problem of deciding which of the process in the ready queue is to be allocated to the CPU. Already I said there are so many steps. It may be FIFO, it may be based on priority, maybe unordered linked list, isn't it? So based on the scenarios, based on these scheduling algorithms, operating system will decide that which process which is present in the ready queue has to be given to the CPU for the execution. Okay. In this section there are so many. Okay, we will deal with the scheduling algorithm in the next video. I will wind up here because with respect to scheduling algorithm, you will be having some problems to solve. The questions will be in that fashion. Okay, so we will manually solve it. Okay, I will manually solve and I will send the picture. I will make a video for that. So let me wind up here. Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can contact me anytime. Don't worry. So thanks for watching.